Hi, everyone. Welcome to our weekly It's Worth a Shot series. We have a guest speaker today who's going to talk with us about management challenges with people living with dementia. So, Mary, go ahead and go to the next slide. As always, we just have a disclaimer here that our presentations may contain information or content supplied by third parties, and the information provided does not constitute an endorsement or recommendation by our principal. Next slide, please. Just some updates and reminders from Mountain Pacific. NHSN applications will be offline beginning at 8 p.m. on Friday, February 23rd through Sunday. They are doing a large system upgrade, so please plan accordingly. If you typically do your uploads on the weekend, you will not have access. Also, there's a Center of Excellence for Behavioral Health and Nursing Facilities. They provide mental health and substance use evidence-based training. Check out their website. Their link is there. They have a lot of good information that you can use in your community as behavioral health continues to be a part of our lives in long-term care. Next slide, please. And all you basketball fans out there, we have an all-star vaccination team flyer that you post in your break rooms or in your facilities as part of the March Madness. So you can click on that link. It'll be in the chat. You can download that and make that available for your communities. Next slide, please. Office hours for reporting annual health care personnel influenza vaccination data. As you know, that is due, the deadline to report that is on May 15th. And so if you have any questions about that, the vaccination team is providing 3 office hour sessions. The dates are listed there in February, March, and in April, and how you can report your annual influenza, healthcare professional influenza vaccination data ahead of that deadline. Registration information is listed on the next slide, and get registered for those and to learn how you can upload that information early and be ahead of the game. Next slide, please. Just some housekeeping items. Please add your webinar topics in the evaluation form that we love to hear back from you. We do encourage those evaluation forms to, as you give us information of what you want to hear and see in your next It's Worth a Shot. So please, we will continue to meet every Wednesday. So if you have new topics you would like us to talk about, please drop them in the chat or complete that in the evaluation form. Next slide, please. And our weekly influenza snapshot. So we're looking nice and green there in Alaska, which is good. And Hawaii is just slightly under that, Wyoming as well. So that's your layout of the flu outbreaks in your region. Next slide, please. And then here's our weekly COVID snapshot. We are seeing a downward trend in testing positivity, only by -0.6%. And we're seeing a slight uptick in hospital admissions by a +0.8%. And you can see the states in our region, some have substantial decreases, like on the Big Island of Hawaii and parts of Alaska, while others are seeing moderate increases and substantial increases in our regions. Slide, please. All right, now Dorothy Dorothy Colby is our Director of Community Engagement and Positive Approach to Care Trainer. She's with Hawaii here in Honolulu. We invited her back for a second showing of management strategies for people living with dementia. And this was as a result of you, our listeners, in asking for Q&A sessions and giving real life situations and scenarios. And so Dorothy's going to talk about some of those that were submitted. So Dorothy, if I may, I'll turn the mic over to you.
Yeah, thank you so much. Thank you for having me. I'm happy to be here today. Yeah, we got a lot of great questions at the other time I attended. And while I'm doing this brief introduction before we get to your questions, please feel free to put into the chat any specific questions or scenarios you would like to see. We did get a couple submitted ahead of time. Next slide, please. Yeah, so what I want to share in the beginning, before we get to specifics and case studies and things, is the approach that I would like to share with you, which is the positive approach to care. Many of you may have heard of this before, and Teepa Snow, that's her picture there, who's an occupational therapist, through positive approach to care, and that's the training program that we use at Holly Kuike and that I want to share with you today, really looks at the brain change. And if you want to touch your head, your brain change, all of our brains are in this together, that is happening for someone who is living with dementia, no matter what the cause, whether it's Alzheimer's disease, Parkinson's, strokes. And is there a way that we can understand those changes and then be able to put ourselves into the bodies and brains and shoes, I guess, of the person who's living it to understand how they're perceiving the world? And through that, we can be really good detectives. Next slide, please, to help support the person and ourselves and everybody in the community that is working together. So we're going to look, I'm going to have you take two hands. Challenging behaviors is one hand. This is a very common term that we all use. This resident, this patient is having challenging behaviors. But the thing about that term, challenging behaviors, is we're pretty sure who the problem is. That person, like that person has challenging behaviors. That I want to kind of switch it to this other term, challenge situations. Because yes, that person is having challenges, but who else is having challenges? We are. We're in this situation together. We are facing a challenging situation together. So stepping back to my second bullet point, being a detective is what we're going to do today, and not a judge. It's not just about them, people living with dementia and the challenging behaviors that they have. It's about all of us and how we can be non-judgmental and increase our knowledge and awareness to figure out what's really happening in these scenarios. So next slide. So as a quick overview, this is the other thing we're going to do. We just take two hands, and if you're, I know many of you sitting in offices, people are going to wonder, why are you waiting? But if you could, two hands, there's the person you're supporting and you. We need to come together in a relationship. The relationship is the most critical thing so that we can, here's my two fingers, move forward in a positive way together to a new place. Maybe it's the bathroom, a new emotional state, feeling calmer, feeling safer, whatever it is. But we are the key, but it starts with the relationship. And with the understanding, people living with dementia are really doing the best they can with a changing, dying brain. And even when that best they can is sometimes downright terrible, it is not purposeful. It is related to the disease process of the brain change. And remembering in this relationship, which one of us has the healthy brain? That's not always easy to remember, because our brains, when it's under stress, don't function so well too. But we are the ones who do have the healthy brains and be willing to change. So next slide. One more slide, please. So I already mentioned that person's brain is dying. So let's take a look real quick at the two brains. The one on the left is a healthy individual, male, 75, who passed away in a car accident with no neurodegenerative disease. These two men, they're both male, 75, have the same head circumference. So the one on the right passed away after 10 plus years with Alzheimer's disease process. So they have the same size skull. So when we're thinking about brain processes, the first one that people think about with Alzheimer's disease is memory loss. And certainly the memory centers of the brain are affected, but looking at that right-hand brain, is there any part of the brain that is not affected by this disease? No, the whole thing. Go ahead. So that includes things like judgment, impulse control. Next slide, please. Language processing, vision, all those things are affected. So looking at this PET scan here, the healthy adult is on the left. So that would be that healthy brain of the person who died in the car accident, but this is a living person, all the way through the third brain, which is late stages. So that would be the end of, getting close to the end of life. And then, so the middle one says early. So when we say early in this, and you're looking at that, and you're already probably noticing changes in things like the amount of red. Red is high glucose burn on this PET scan. There's a significant change already in the early changes brain with the amount of high glucose burn. When I say early, they're not living with us here at Holly Creek yet. They're at home, maybe probably undiagnosed. This person is diagnosed, but but you see a lot of change already. So there's a lot of loss. The front of your brain, touch the front of your head. That's the prefrontal cortex that's at the top there. You notice there's not a lot of red there right now, and this is the grown-up parental part of your brain that allows you to make good choices, good judgments, and you zip it and don't say everything that you think. That's already pretty severely affected. And the other part of the brain I want to point out before we get into the case studies is the amygdala. If you have a bigger amygdala, if you look at the healthy brain, your amygdala, put your hands out like this. This is kind of what it looks like in your brain. It's your threat perceiver, one of its jobs. So it's always scanning. Even right now, wherever we are, we're always kind of unconsciously scanning. And if something comes in that we're not expecting, our amygdala is like checking it out. Oh, that's okay. I know who that is. Goes back down. That happens all the time. But notice in the progression of the brains, like to the early stage, the amygdala red is actually bigger. So when other parts of, why might that be? Other parts of the brain are not functioning as well, but this amygdala is trying to help us out, keep us alive. It's working harder. So as you think about the progression here, so the amygdala is big and red, even in the late stages, the amygdala is there working hard, but the other parts are not functioning so well. Who's driving the bus? The primitive brain, the amygdala. And it's what keeps us safe with fight, fright, flight. So when I don't understand what's going on, you're trying to help me, but I can't comprehend that. Fight, fight, flight. Some of us are more fighters. Some of us are more flighters. Some of us are more fighters, maybe hide. That's what's in control for us. And it's involuntary. So next slide, please. So now that we understand that, kind of keep going. Next slide. I already covered these things. We start to see when we want to be a good detective for someone who's living with dementia, we want to be looking underneath what these quote unquote behaviors, challenge behaviors that we're seeing. Is there emotional need? Is there physical needs? As healthcare workers or providers, we're generally pretty good at the physical needs, monitoring intake, energy, when was the last BM, taking the keeping track of the environment, diagnosing pain even, which can be hard. We had a separate workshop on that. Diagnosing pain can be a challenge, but in general, we're very aware, but the emotional ones can be really, really tough for us. And sometimes if I take the physical needs and put the emotional ones over them, we see the emotionals, they're so angry, they're so sad, and it might cover up a physical one. The next slide. One more time, next slide, please. Okay, one more slide, please. Sorry, I want to make sure we have enough time. So we're going to use all these concepts and skills and looking at the specific case studies to see what we can find out. And I provided a couple of tools for us. If you go ahead and one more slide. You got in your email 2 PDF. One of them is the PAC resource card, which is information on the positive gen progression patterns, the 6 pieces of the puzzles. This is a very short webinar we're here together, so I won't be able to go into all of them, but these are tools that you can use when you're taking that step back to look at a scenario. Well, where is this person in their journey with dementia? Which piece of the puzzle is causing a challenge right now? Are they bored? Are they in pain, on things like that? And then the demystifying resistance. This is actually an older handout from PAC. It is available on. I found it online. But I think it's from about 2010 or 2012. But it has a nice worksheet in there to help you think through. And we'll be kind of using the skills that are in that worksheet when we look at our scenarios together. Okay, next slide, please. So I've also wanted to share a few resources. There's a short video on challenging behaviors. There's also Pause for Care offers a free 30-minute consultation if you want to talk to someone from PAC about specific cases. And there's more videos that we have available free through our partnership with Catholic Charities about things like challenging situations, engagement, and the GEMS progression pattern. So if you want to dig deeper, after looking at those PAC resource cards or after any of the things we talk about today, those are the places you can go for more resources. Okay, next slide, including an app, which I just learned if you have the brand newest iPhone, for example, this they haven't updated the app to work with it, but if you have an older one like I do, then it will still work. But if you are able to, this GEMS gives really good tips for working and supporting people at the different progression levels. Okay, so the next one. Next slide. This is where we actually get to why we're here today. I just wanted to give that little bit of background before we get started. Please feel free to put any in there, but we do have a couple scenarios that we're going to share out loud, and then we'll try and be detectives together. So put on your Sherlock Holmes hat, and away we go.
All right. Thank you so much, Dorothy. So our first scenario is a 65-year-old male with alcohol-induced dementia was placed into a nursing home as a long-term placement. He presents with frequent verbal outbursts, which has led to physical assaults to the staff. They have consulted with appropriate physicians, assigned one-to-one with the resident. They've tried non-pharmacological ways to redirect and have not had success.
Yeah, I'm sure every first reaction people might have is that is very complex situation, very complex. And if the person who's submitted this happens to be on, please let us know. We'd be happy to go back and forth. But I was telling Jolene whenever any question like this here at Holly Creek or from the outside or comes in, my first response is, I need to learn more. I need to know more about it. So when I think about, I keep putting behaviors in air quotes because all behavior, including our own, is a form of communication. So even behaviors where we put very negative labels on, aggression, there's something underneath that. Am I feeling threatened in some way that you're not perceiving? Am I, feeling cornered or something? We have to get underneath it, because if we just see the system like, God, Dorothy's so crikey today. She's just, watch out, don't go by her because she's just going to bite your head off. Yeah, okay, that's some information about me, but what's underneath that? So for this one, when we talk about verbal outbursts, I'd want to know more about that. So I want to share some of the questions that pop to my mind, and if you think of questions too, so because this is where we're stepping back and we want to help support this person and dig deeper. When we say verbal outbursts, what is the person's language like? Is it string of curse words? Is it, what's the tone like? How much language does this person have, and how complex it is? Because if I'm hearing not very complex language with a tone of, anxiety or anger, but the language is telling me this person is having trouble with speech production, which probably means this person is also having trouble with speech comprehension. That's a very important clue that could really lead to conflict where I think I'm explaining something properly, but the person cannot understand me, and that can lead to increased anxiety. So that's something. What exactly is happening when he has these verbal outbursts? Like 10 minutes before, 30 minutes before, the night before. All these things lead up. If you or I are not sleeping well, how functional are our brains the next day? And if you lay that on top of an already dying brain for someone living with dementia, something as, not having a good night's sleep can really put a stressor on that. And remember, this front part of the brain, put your hand here, this is your prefrontal cortex, your filter. I'm going to turn sideways so you can see. So when I have a thought, and maybe it's not that nice, but we all have them sometimes. We're not angels. I think it, but it doesn't come out. I have this nice filter blocking it coming out. But when I'm living with dementia and my prefrontal cortex is shrinking and dying, remember, it didn't have any red, even in the early stage. My filter looks like this. And what I think is coming straight out. And it's not because I'm mean or I'm, a BI, whatever. It's what I think is what I say. I'm more likely to have these outbursts because I say out loud what I think, because I've lost that filter directly with the brain change. So I cannot help it. I'm not doing it on purpose, this outburst. So that's something to think about. The other questions that I asked myself about is about the description of physical assault. I'd want to know more about that. Is what's happening while it's happening, right? So is it someone trying to give hands-on support, even in a loving way that was not understood? And so the physical assault is get your hands off of me, don't touch me. Is it something that's out of the blue, which is generally much less common? And again, what happened 10 minutes before? Was there starting to have a increasing degree of anxiety and agitation before the actual touch came? Where can we look to gather the clues ahead of time so we don't get to this, right? Is there a way we can change our path before this happens? And we can only learn by making mistakes, by the way. So we have these moments where it's like, oh my God, this does not go the way I wanted it to. Take a deep breath. Okay, that's where we can have those moments like, oh, they didn't understand what I said, or oh, now I see they were already agitated and didn't understand when I tried to help and touch them. So I'm going to wind that back next time and see if maybe I can give more visual cues or use simpler language or something like that. That's how we learn and make adjustments. Yeah, it's just such a complex case.
Good, thank you, Dorothy. I have another scenario that has come in.
Sure.
We have two residents who consistently make false accusations of abuse, which they have care plan for. They appear to be targeting this other resident. She has advanced dementia, ambulates independently with a four-wheel walker throughout the entire facility. She will occasionally go into another room to use a restroom, but is also easily directed. How do we care plan for this other resident?
Yeah. Once again, it's like, okay, tell me more about this. So, for this one, I think I'd like to kind of separate there are actually three residents described. So there were two that were said make false accusations against people and have a history of that, and then the one resident who goes in other people's rooms and has been the target of these kind of false accusations. So I kind of want to split those two challenging situations apart, and let's do some detective work on the idea of false accusations. So when I would want to know more about that, of course, first, which would be like, what exactly are we talking about? Or is it accusations of, the history of accusations? Is it accusations about staff? Is it about physical or verbal or emotional abuse? Or is it accusations like someone stealing my that staff member is stealing my underwear, or it's so broad that it's hard to know, but I'd want to know more about the specifics. But I also would like us to take a step back about the idea of false accusations or false statements in general, like someone stole my purse, when you know that they hid it in the drawer or under the mattress, or someone's trying to, I don't know. The list goes endless. But going back to the brain and the dying brain. So my brain, I'm a person living with dementia, is trying to make sense of the world. And so I'll use the someone stole my purse as an example. And I think you stole my purse. For all of us people who carry a purse, when you have that moment where you can't find your purse, what happens to your brain? Here's my amygdala. Like, oh my God, right? You can't think straight. Like where is it? I always have it with me. Oh my God, I'm in a public place. Did someone steal it? Oh wait, maybe did I leave it in the car? You have all these, you start to panic a little. That is your regular working overtime. So now put that normal human response where you could think it through on top of a dying brain of someone living with dementia. I would never think that I hid it under my mattress, even though I did do that because I wanted to put it in a safe space. Maybe I have some paranoia about people stealing things. And now I can't find it, and I'm convinced someone stole it. And I think it's you. My brain, I'm not lying. I'm going to say it again. I am not lying. And I'm not making a false accusation. My brain is trying to fill in the gaps. It's called confabulation. And it's a consequence of the brain change from the diseases that cause dementia. So I'll fill it in. Like it's got to be stolen. We have to call the police. You're like, oh, calm down. It's in your drawer. No. It is real to me. I'm not making something up. When we make something up, we know we made something up.
Dorothy,
This is real. Yeah.
To add to your scenario, the two residents are alert and oriented versus the resident who is at risk for abuse.
Okay. So when you say alert and oriented, does that also mean that they are not living with dementia at all?
Correct.
Because you can be kind of alert and oriented and still have some degree of
So
dementia.
alert oriented and not living with dementia.
So the false accusations they are making are for sure purposeful. They're well, anyway.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah,
okay.
She's saying yes.
Okay. Great. Thank you for the clarification. So the person who is going in other people's rooms definitely is living with dementia. And this I saw in another, I'm going to kind of tie this in with the one that I saw in the chat about someone who's going into other people's rooms to stealing things. So those the wayfinding, that's another part of the brain that lets you know how to get from here to the bathroom and then back here again, or for a resident, from here to my room and to the bathroom back here again. That is broken. I don't know anymore. And as I'm getting more towards the middle stages, that where you'll find more wayfinding problems. And this is a room. I don't know if it's not my room or someone else's room. This is a bathroom. I'm going to use it. And this is something that looks interesting. I'm going to touch it and experience it, and I'm going to keep it. But I don't have a concept of mine, not mine. I'm not stealing. I'm just experiencing. And I might stuff it in my bra, or if I carry a walker bag, I might put it in my walker. I am gathering, but I'm not stealing. At this, when we're talking about dementia at this stage, this is how I experience the world. If you look at the GEM scale, that would be more the amber, the mid-stage scale. And that can be a real challenge. So what I see is what I know. So if you don't want me to get into certain things, those things can't be out for me. If I can use very often, because what I see is what I know, the next thing that's in front of me, including something you might offer me, like your friendly hand. Maybe I'm holding something you really don't want me to be holding. If you try to take it from me, I'll hold it more. But hey, hi, I was looking for you. Being that thing that's more interesting, more comforting than the thing I have. Okay. Is there another one?
No, that's all we have, and we actually are at the top of the hour, so
Okay,
this kind of pretty much wraps up our It's Worth
yeah,
a Shot for today, and thank you
thank
again,
you.
Dorothy, for
Yeah,
presenting to us, and we look
thanks
forward
for
to having
sharing
you.
those scenarios, and please take a look at those things. It's so complex, even starting with one little thing. Like I'm just going to look at, the gems, or I'm just going to look at, this one piece of the puzzle. When you look at that, it can, and just taking that step back. Yeah.
Okay. Mary, last slide, please. So as always, in the chat, we have the evaluation form. We do encourage you to click on that and complete it. Takes about 15 seconds to submit the evaluation form with your feedback. So we appreciate that. Thank you all so much. We'll see you next week. And
Next week, we do have our series within a series. So it's another one of the NHSN reporting webinars. Just so you know, Jolene, sorry.
Very good. Very good. Thank you. All right, folks, have a good rest of your day, and we'll see you next week.
Thank you. Thank you, Dorothy.
Thank you. Thank you, everyone. Bye.